Have you ever wondered why, despite all your effort to stay faithful, you still feel overlooked, unimportant, or like you don't quite belong? You've prayed, you've served, you've followed the rules, and yet there's this ache, a question you've been afraid to say out loud. Why do I still feel so invisible? In today's episode, we're naming something most women of faith have never been given language for: the hidden beliefs that quietly shape how you see yourself, God, and your worth. I'm sharing three of the most common ones: I'm invisible, I don't matter, I don't belong. And if any of these hit home, this conversation might open a door you didn't know you needed. This is not about walking away from your faith. It's about finally seeing the invisible threads that have been choking the life out of it and gently beginning to untangle them. If you've ever questioned what's wrong with you, friend, I promise it's not you. You were never the problem. You just never had words for the wounds. Let's change that today. Welcome to Healing Religious Trauma, the podcast for Christian women ready to heal without losing their faith. If you're feeling the weight of spiritual pressure and distant from the God you used to trust, you're in the right place. I'm Debra, spiritual healing coach, founder of the Healing Religious Trauma Circle, and someone who's walked the hard road of untangling toxic faith. If you're ready to make sense of your story, find peace with a safe, loving God, and hear stories that remind you you're not alone, grab your tea, toss the rule book, and let's go. Did you know I wrote a book for you? Not a theology book, not a rule book, a redemptive memoir and spiritual healing guide, crafted for Christian women who love God but feel worn down by religious rules, shame, or silence. If you've ever felt afraid to ask honest questions, if you've carried shame like a second skin, or if you've longed for real connection but worried that healing meant walking away from your faith, this is for you. My book, He Is Enough, helps you name the invisible aftershocks of religious trauma, the deep spiritual wounds that keep faithful women stuck in fear, silence, and self-doubt. Because you can't heal what you can't name. And this book gives you the language to name what happened, how it shaped you, and where your healing can begin. It's a full-color, workbook-style guide designed to walk you through reflection, restoration, and reconnection with your faith, your voice, and your sense of inner peace. And when you grab your copy at heisenoughbook.com, you'll also receive the audiobook, a bonus mini-course, weekly reading circles I personally host, and access to our private support community. It's just $17, and it's yours to begin right now. Visit heisenoughbook.com and claim your seat at the table of healing. You don't have to walk this alone. Before everything fell apart, I really did think I was doing what God had called me to do. I was a faithful wife, a committed mother, a devoted servant in my home and religious environment. I poured my whole heart into loving people, raising my children, supporting my husband, my parents, and leaders, and living what I believed was a good and godly life. And I don't look back on that part with resentment or bitterness. I really did love it. I loved people. I loved serving. I believed in what I was building. But there was always a quiet ache underneath, a part of me that felt like I was slowly disappearing. I didn't feel like I had a voice, at least not one that I could be using honestly. And it felt like my presence only mattered when I was doing something for someone else. That sense of invisibility, of not mattering, it was always humming under the surface. And then, after 24 years, almost overnight, everything collapsed. It wasn't a slow unraveling I could see coming. It was more like an axe to the root of everything I had built my life around. Decisions were made behind closed doors. Big decisions. Ones that affected my family, my future, and my faith. And I had no say, no voice. I was simply informed. What I had given my life to was gone. And the message I internalized in that moment was, you don't matter. You never did. I had a nervous breakdown. I couldn't function. I didn't recognize myself. I didn't know what to believe anymore. I remember thinking, God must be killing me. Because surely if I had mattered to him, this wouldn't have happened. Surely if I'd been worth anything at all, someone would have fought for me, seen me, cared. I wasn't sure if I would ever feel joy again. I wasn't sure I even wanted to. But slowly, through 1,000 little mercies, something began to shift. Not a dramatic, mountaintop moment, but in quiet, healing invitations. In the voices of people who spoke the truth to me. In the stillness where God met me, not with condemnation, but with compassion. I started to see that it wasn't God who discarded me. It was a family and faith system that never truly saw me to begin with. And God wasn't trying to kill me. He was trying to set me free. Free from a story that required my silence to be accepted. Free from the lie that my worth was found in being useful. Free from the invisible belief that I had to earn my belonging. I began to realize I do matter, not because of what I give or how well I perform, but because I am his. And the people who made me feel discarded, they were never the measure of my value. The truth is, I am seen. Luke 12:7 says, the very hairs on my head are numbered. That means not one part of me is forgotten. Isaiah 49:16 says, I'm engraved in the palms of his hands. Psalm 27:10 says, even when others forsake me, the Lord receives me. And Ephesians 2:10 says, I am his workmanship, his masterpiece. So I keep showing up, not because I'm trying to prove I matter, but because I finally believe that I do. Okay, let's jump in to today's teaching. And before we begin, I want to say something really important. If no one's ever told you this before, I want to say it clearly now. You're not crazy. You're not broken. And you're not too sensitive. You've just never had words for what you were carrying. And that's what we're going to begin doing together today. Because this journey of healing from religious trauma, it starts with naming what was never named. And there's one piece I've seen over and over again in my own story and in the stories of hundreds of women I've walked with. Most of the pain we carry isn't from what was said. It's from what we silently believed, what we internalized, what we absorbed, what we started believing about ourselves, about God, and about our place in the world. That's what keeps us stuck. I call these beliefs the hidden barriers of religious trauma. They're like invisible scripts running in the background of our lives. Scripts that were installed in us, not because we were weak, but because we were vulnerable, open, impressionable, and often deeply committed to God. But when spiritual experiences are layered with fear, shame, control, or abandonment, we don't just walk away unscathed. We form beliefs. And when we're not taught how to name or challenge those beliefs, they don't go away. They go underground. And that's why you can love God with all your heart and still feel spiritually stuck. These barriers don't always sound like full sentences either. Often they show up in the body first. They sound like, I can't say that. I shouldn't need that. What if I'm wrong? What if God is disappointed in me? And these thoughts and fears, they get buried so deep, we don't even know they're shaping us. But here's what I want you to know. They're not you, and they're not the voice of God. Today, I want to introduce you to 3 of the most common hidden barriers I see in the lives of Christian women healing from religious trauma. They're I'm invisible, I don't matter, I don't belong. If you've ever felt unseen, dismissed, or like you're just too different to fully belong anywhere, you're not alone. And no, it's not because your faith isn't strong enough. It's because at some point, someone or some system taught you a message that was never God's to begin with. So let's start with this one. Hidden barrier number 1. I'm invisible. This barrier shows up when you've spent years minimizing yourself to stay safe or accepted. Maybe you learned early on that being too expressive, too honest, or too vocal wasn't welcomed in your family or church community. And so you began to shrink. You became really good at making other people feel seen, while secretly feeling unseen yourself. This doesn't just affect your relationships. It affects how you relate to God. You start to wonder, does God really see me? Or just the role I've played? But the deeper truth, you were never meant to disappear. Even in a system that rewarded silence, God never stopped seeing you. As Hagar said in Genesis 16:13, "You are the God who sees me." Let that sink in. God sees you, not the mask, not the role, you. And if you've ever felt invisible, I want you to know that pain is real. But it's not the final word, and you were always meant to be seen. Hidden barrier number 2. I don't matter. This one runs deep. It can form when you've given everything to your church, your family, your community, and still feel discarded, overlooked, or replaceable. It might show up when you're trying to speak up and are silenced. When you're hurting and someone tells you, just pray harder. When your needs are labeled selfish. You start to wonder, does my voice really count? Does anyone even care? But here's the thing. The barrier isn't truth. It's trauma. Because here's the actual truth. You matter. Your presence matters. Your story matters. And your healing matters. Isaiah 43:4 says, "You are precious and honored in my sight, and I love you." Let me say that again for the woman who's doubting it. You are precious. You are honored, and you are loved. The barrier may say you don't matter, but the truth is, you were created for connection, to be known and valued, not dismissed or forgotten. Hidden barrier number 3, I don't belong. This one hits hard, especially for those of us who've spent years trying to find our place in spiritual community. You might relate to this one if you've ever walked into a church or group meeting and immediately felt like an outsider. Maybe you've been told directly or indirectly that your questions, your background, your identity, or your story didn't fit the mold. And so you stayed quiet. You tried to fit. You tried to belong by erasing what made you different. But over time, that becomes soul-crushing. You start to think, maybe there's something wrong with me. Friend, listen closely. There's nothing wrong with you. You were not made to conform to a version of belonging that asks you to hide who you really are, dim your light just to be accepted, or silence your voice and shrink your soul. Romans 12:5 says, "So in Christ we, though many, form one body, and each member belongs to all the others." You belong, not because you perform, but because you are part of the body. And not one part is unnecessary. Not one part is unwanted. So if this episode is stirring something in you, I want to gently invite you into one small step today. It's not a test. It's not a pressure. It's just an invitation. Take a breath. Find a quiet moment and ask yourself this question. Which of these hidden beliefs has been shaping my view of God or of myself? You don't have to fix it, okay? Just name it. Begin the process. Because naming the barrier is the first crack of light, the first shift in the soil, the beginning of a new root system. And I want to close with this. If the lie is I'm invisible, the truth is you are fully seen and intimately known. If the lie is I don't matter, the truth is you are precious and honored in His sight. If the lie is I don't belong, the truth is you are a necessary part of the body of Christ. This is not about losing your faith. This is about healing the harm that got wrapped around it. You're not losing anything. You're gaining everything. And in future episodes, we'll keep uncovering more of these hidden barriers and begin walking through the 5 stages of healing that lead you home. So stay close. There's more hope ahead. Hey, before you go, if you've ever loved God but felt crushed by religious rules, silence, or shame, I wrote a book for you. It's called He Is Enough. Part memoir, part healing guide, created for Christian women walking through religious trauma. Inside, I help you name the invisible aftershocks that keep so many faithful women stuck in fear, confusion, or self-doubt, even as they try to stay faithful and do everything right. Because you can't heal what you can't name. And this book gives you the language to name what happened, how it shaped you, and where your healing can begin. You'll also get the audiobook, a bonus mini course, weekly reading circles I personally host, and access to our private support community. Go to heisenoughbook.com and claim your seat at the table of healing. You don't have to walk this alone. Hey friend, if this episode encouraged you and made you feel a little less alone, would you share it with someone who needs that too? And while you're at it, would you please leave a quick review on Apple Podcasts? It's like a virtual hug that helps more women find their way here. You can also take the free quiz at healingreligionstrauma.org to get your personalized path forward, plus a little audio gift I made just for you. Okay, I'll meet you back here next week for another honest conversation. Until then, keep taking the next gentle step.